Hey everyone, as you recall, we've had some fun mocking the ridiculous things Terrance Howard says, and we also debunked the hell out of Billy Carson the grifting fraud. I had considered this chapter over, but then Terrance Howard appeared on Billy Carson's channel to have an idiot contest, and I just couldn't resist commenting. If you're looking for a laugh, you came to the right place. In case you need a little context, Terrance Howard went on Joe Rogan's podcast a few months ago and spewed a bunch of gibberish that he thought made him sound smart when he was really just fumbling second grade math. Then he went on there again and spewed even more gibberish and kind of got exposed by Eric Weinstein, but not properly. In between, Billy Carson, also known as William Tyrone Carlson, the convicted felon, went on the show and spewed his Ancient Aliens script of lies that he lifted verbatim from Zechariah Sitchin to gain some fans, making a point to announce his deep friendship with Terry and how they talk about wave conjugations on the phone all the time.
It makes sense
that Terrance Howard, because I just talked to him a couple hours ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, so we were talking about wave conjugations and everything.
Well, now it has come full circle, and since the barrage of hatred from Terry and Billy fans hasn't relented in the months since I put out those debunks, I'm going to do the only sensible thing there is to do, and that is mock the crap out of these bozos again for their continued lies and charlatanry. That wraps up the context, so let's get started. First things first, take a look at the title and thumbnail for this video. Time to break the internet, the talk we've all been waiting for. The ego on these two is immeasurable. The market for bad math and lies about pyramids isn't as big as you think, fellas. If your internet is broken, check your modem. Anyway, once it starts, Terrence can't get on the stream for one reason or another, probably because he can't figure out how to turn on his computer, so Billy makes some announcements.
We have a great announcement going on with our TV network. Our TV network is expanding, and we're getting a whole new look. It's going to be super duper. It's going to look like Netflix and Amazon Prime just got married. Okay? And they had a baby. And their baby is going to be Forbidden Knowledge TV.
Yeah, you bet. His shitty Kirkland brand Gaia channel is going to be like Netflix and Amazon Prime got married and had a baby. Two companies with a combined net worth of about $300 billion. Good call, Billy. We look forward to you sweeping the Emmys next year.
Look, Elizabeth is working on trying to get Terrance Howard on here right now, trying to get it all sorted out. But meanwhile, while that's being done, let me go ahead and dial you guys in a little bit on the Kardashev scale. Okay, I think that it's important to understand what that, and I'm reading directly from my book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets.
Billy needs to stall a bit, so he's going to read from his crappy book about some emerald tablets which absolutely do not exist. And what is he going to tell us about? Why, the Kardashev scale, of course. That's how Billy pronounces Kardashev scale. Billy is so rich and successful that phonetics don't apply to him. Why would he pronounce the SH after the D? Just because SH is after the D in the word? That attitude is why you'll always be poor. Stop knowing how to read and be like Billy if you want to be successful. When you see some letters, pick your own order for how to pronounce them. Go on, Billy. Tell us about the Kardashev scale.
And if you want to get more information about this, it's in my best-selling book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. You can get it on Amazon or on our website, all right?
Yeah, or just Google it and learn about it in 10 seconds from a real source instead of wasting your money on his toilet paper pamphlet. Whatever floats your boat.
Humans eat dead plants and meats, which sustain our energetic needs. Therefore, according to the Kardashev, we are a type 0 civilization. And we have not even made it onto the scale. In other words, the Kardashev scale categorizes humans in the most lowly type of civilization. At this point and at this moment in time, we're not even a type 1 civilization, we're a type 0. And that's why information like what Terrance Howard has to share and many other innovators has to share is extremely important to our civilization.
Yeah, totally. Terry figured out how to control earthquakes and volcanoes and master nuclear fusion. We have to listen to Terry fumble his times tables so we can become a type 1 civilization. Maybe he will tell us some earthquake secrets on this podcast.
The speed of light is a constant, but there are ways to travel faster than the speed of light. For example, if you utilize something called the Alcubierre drive, which was created by a Mexican physicist. It allows a ship or whatever it's installed in to move space. Now, they've tested this in a laboratory setting and actually had great results. The only problem is that we're facing a situation with exotic energy, antimatter. We can only create a very small amount at a time, and it's extremely expensive to create because we live inside of a globe, a world that has a crazy financial matrix.
No, this technology is completely hypothetical. Nobody has ever made anything even remotely like this, and Billy is talking out of his ass as usual. He has no clue what antimatter is, and he knows as little about economics as he does about any other academic subject.
So when you're thinking about, mankind being the pinnacle of all creation, it's not really there. We're the new kids on the block. We are the new kids on the block.
You heard him. We're all the new kids on the block. We think we're so super awesome, but really we're just a bunch of Wahlbergs. We're nowhere near as good as Backstreet Boys or NSYNC.
The types of Kardashev civilizations are called type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, and type 5. Interestingly enough, these types of civilizations match with Thoth's descriptions of the various levels he witnessed as he traveled through the universe. So Thoth, the Atlantean priest king who wrote the Emerald Tablets, he literally talks about this scale and the levels that he has witnessed with his own eyes as he's seen civilizations of mankind rise and fall throughout the universe.
There's that patented Billy bullshit. Some jerk Thoth who never existed and wrote some imaginary tablets went space traveling and saw aliens, so all of that totally definitely happened. Why ask for evidence? A little background information. In the 1920s, a grifter named Maurice Doreal claimed to have discovered these so-called Emerald Tablets of Thoth in Egypt, and then produced a translation of the tablets and sold it, without ever having produced any evidence whatsoever of any tablets. So he made it up. It's just like Joseph Smith making up the Book of Mormon off the top of his head while staring at a rock in a hat. Both of these guys were massive frauds, but at least they had the balls to make up something original. Billy is a dim-witted lazy fraud who just steals the crap that other frauds made up and presents it to gullible black people to make money on the internet. Yeah, I said it. No, I'm not saying that all black people are gullible and stupid enough to fall for Billy's grift, but only black people fall for it because of the Afrocentric twist he adds to his pseudo-motivational rhetoric. White people who are gullible and stupid fall for other stupid things, like white supremacist grifters and Mormonism. That's why white people aren't infesting my Billy Carson debunks shouting, "Y'all haters," every 15 seconds.
Especially at the time when people were supposed to be hunter-gatherers trying to find out how they were going to get their next meal and some safe shelter.
This is proof that Billy just has a bunch of catchphrases he blurts out at random. He's talking about this supposed time of Thoth, which is supposed to be something like 36,000 BCE, and he uses this hunter-gatherer phrase. This is the exact phrase he used when describing the Sumerians in his Joe Rogan appearance.
So, if people were supposed to be trying to worry about how they're going to get their next meal, shelter for the night, and all these kind of things, who has time to sit down and write these incredible works of art like the Epic of Gilgamesh, for example?
This was the part where he implied that historians think Sumerian scribes living in 4000 BCE in large cities were hunter-gatherers. Facts don't matter to Billy. This is all just some words he memorized and regurgitates at random like he's selling cars.
Type 2 civilization. And again, for everyone who just joined, I'm reading from the Compendium of the Emerald Tablets by Billy Carson. This is my book that I wrote 4.5 years ago.
I've tasted other cocos. This is the best.
It's the #1 bestseller on Amazon and on forbiddenknowledge.com.
That it's the best-selling book on your crappy website is not very impressive. By the way, I'm skimming over most of this section because he is literally reading Wikipedia definitions for the tiers in the Kardashev scale that he copied and pasted into his self-published book. Somebody get this guy a Pulitzer.
And that brings me to ask the question, which is something I'm working on right now with photons. I'm doing some photon experiments, and I'm calculating the traversing of photons back and forth and analyzing the ability for a photon to actually not travel from point A to point B, but that photons actually propagate from pixel to pixel, just like in a video game.
A+ word salad, Billy. You're doing photon experiments where you are calculating the traversing of photons, huh? Well, that doesn't mean anything, so what are you calculating exactly? Calculations have numbers in them, genius. Photons are going back and forth between what? And what are you measuring? And they don't go from point A to point B, but they go from pixel to pixel as though these pixels wouldn't be points. Of course, there are no pixels, but it's fun to imagine Billy sitting in his room with a lamp and a stopwatch pretending to do science. It's also fun to watch him struggle to read this bullshit off a teleprompter because it's actually all meaningless to him.
The energy and the information is then collapsed and it re-energizes and opens up in the next pixel.
Good job, Billy. Collapsed is a hard word, but you got it.
And how this universe is created and the software that it's running on, because it is running on software. It's running on the Adinkra codes, and it's running on the Adinkra codes in the Mandelbrot set. We know that for a fact now in science, actually peer-reviewed science.
Yeah, the universe runs on Adinkra codes and Mandelbrot sets. It's peer-reviewed science, you guys. Just make up any bullshit you want and say, it's science when you're done. That's how science works.
You're just a woman with a small brain. With a brain a third the size of us. It's science.
But that's enough of Billy's monologue. It's time for Top Dog Terry to make his fashionably late arrival.
It seems as if he's having a little bit of a technical difficulty, which is why we're getting off to a little bit of a late start. Having some technical difficulties right now. And I see a very special friend of mine popping on here. Let me see if I can bring him up so we can get this party started. See if we can get a test.
I thought it was 8 o'clock LA time.
Oh, no, it was Eastern, yeah.
Man, those technical difficulties of Terry not knowing what time to be ready, they'll get you every time. Maybe he was busy hat shopping.
For everybody who just logged in case you don't know who this man is, this is Terrance Howard. He's an incredible mathematical genius. He's a scientist in my eyes. I call him a doctor. You may know him from acting. He's received over 20 awards in various different films.
Yeah, we know him from acting, Billy. Most mathematical geniuses can do basic arithmetic.
To where they mention that, okay, everybody should talk and should have a voice, but when someone starts speaking, the first thing they want to do is shut them up.
No, that's just you, Terry. Whenever you start speaking, everyone around you wants you to shut the hell up because you're insufferable.
If your fundamentals are being challenged, then maybe you need new fundamentals, because a true foundation, you don't challenge that.
Yeah. Facts.
So,
no, we don't need new fundamentals. You just need to learn the fundamentals, like your times tables. Facts!
I call my people leaders. I don't have followers.
Yeah.
I have leaders,
Yes, you have leaders who do nothing but sit silently listening to you spew bullshit for hours and never challenge or fact check any of it in any way. Real go-getters.
And what is science, after all? It's to explore the matters of interest from a level of logic and analyzation, and actually to try to break those laws to see how they can be broken or find ways to go around them. And if we've never done that, we wouldn't even be on this screen right now connecting with each other via satellites and cell towers. So it took somebody to challenge the status quo to make this technology even happen.
Sorry, which laws of physics are being broken by satellites and cell towers? Which status quo was being disrupted by the invention of the satellite? Most science is not a perplexing paradigm shift, Billy, nor is it an unprecedented upheaval of the social fabric. It's just educated people making cool things we all can use.
I mean, heck, even the people that became the founding fathers of America, they were outlaws. I mean, you have to go against them to create something.
Yeah, you have to leave a country to make a new country, so you have to crap all over existing real science to make up new fake science. Sick analogy, bro.
There's three things that can't be hidden, and that's the truth, the moon, and the sun.
Well, the truth is hidden every day, normally by frauds like these two, and the moon and the sun? Does anyone want to tell them about eclipses? Oh, and also about how we can't see them when they're on the other side of the earth. This is basic stuff.
Someone actually said, good, somebody finally shut him down or stopped him. What did they stop me from doing? From enlightening the world a little bit?
Stopped you from building a cult to shield yourself from IRS collections and wife beating allegations, actually. When the whole world is laughing at you, not too many people want to follow you.
On the show, Eric didn't show as much interest, but he invited me to his house to have dinner on Friday. We had Shabbat. And I took him over a lot of those same pieces that I tried to share with him on the show.
Yes, Eric figured out a way to shit all over you to make himself seem smart while still buttering you up enough to befriend a famous actor. It's pretty gross, but Terry takes advantage of this to pretend that Eric had a revelation in private and decided Terry's bullshit isn't stupid, as a way to negate 4 hours of looking stupid on Joe Rogan.
You know, but the linchpin is the average between the tetrium, which represents the electric potential, full electric potential, and the all shape, which represents the full or complete magnetic field. I thought science was supposed to be talking about the truth and not about imaginary things.
That's the absolute facts.
Like all those patents you imagined out of thin air, Terry? And Billy, of course, follows several minutes of insane rambling with the exclamation, "Facts," knowing there's no point even trying to decipher any of the gibberish.
A person should be able to speak and to get their point across to the fullest, and then you go back and forth from there. But you don't ask a person a question and then cut them off. I think the best way is to allow a person to get their point across.
Terry doesn't have points. That's the point. When he's asked a question, he just spews a series of random words until someone cuts him off and asks him to clarify what the hell he's talking about. He's never actually saying anything, which is why he's been getting mocked relentlessly for the past few months by anyone with more than 2 brain cells.
Sometimes I think people want to throw around their badge of education honor, and instead of just saying, let me humble myself a little bit and just let me tap in and see if I can wrap my mind around what this man is trying to show me, what he's trying to teach me, what he's trying to get me maybe to see from a higher perspective.
Billy wants educated people to be humble. In other words, he wants people who actually know things to forget all those things so that Terry's ramblings don't sound so incredibly stupid. A much better idea would be for Terry to humble himself, admit that he's a clueless asshat with no idea what he's talking about, and actually learn middle school level science principles.
I mean, you can't just say, I'm going to run down and go get me a couple of patents right quick. It's not that easy. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, my first patent I did in 2009. It was for World of Windows, which has now become the basis for the AR, VR world that everyone has. I didn't understand the game at the time regarding how to pay a maintenance fee every 3 months or so to maintain a patent, so that was abandoned.
Billy is wrong. It's easy to get patents. I could duct tape a fork to an alarm clock and patent it. And Terry is just doing another round of pathetic damage control after being exposed for lying about his VR bullshit on Rogan. He didn't invent anything. This was a rejected patent application, and there is no such thing as fees every 3 months to maintain a patent. This is what happens when you're a charlatan. The web of lies grows and grows, and only the most gullible people in the vicinity will remain stuck in it.
I have in the US alone, over 97 granted patents, trademarks, copyrights, all of those things, but over 67 of them are all for technology and for new geometry.
No, you don't. You're just lying some more. Do you know how I know? Nobody who isn't lying would say over 97. They would either use a multiple of 10 or just say the actual number. 97 is just the number he's been using to lie, and he gets careless with his words, so he contradicts himself. As we already discussed, he has a handful of design patents for jewelry and children's toys. He's never invented a single stitch of technology, or he would be showing it to us every second of every day.
And they were right on the show. I used the wrong term. I shouldn't have used supersymmetrical system because they already have something allocated for that. I should have called it a grand unified supersymmetrical system.
Terry admits that he's a moron who says supersymmetry without knowing what it means, and then asserts that he should have been saying grand unified supersymmetrical to pack in even more stupidity and wrongness. Terry, the word you are admitting you don't understand is still in there, just with even more words you don't understand. That's not how you admit fault. And Billy just nods along mindlessly, probably barely even paying attention.
So a lot of those patents came from there. And one of the things that they were talking about on the show, they're like, we're doing a peer review. I don't have any peers on that show. There was no peers on that show because none of them have made the discoveries that I've made.
This is the definition of pathetic. He has no peers in the scientific community because he's not part of it. He's an idiot actor who memorizes words he doesn't understand. And they aren't peers because they haven't made the discoveries he's made? Forget the fact that he's never discovered anything in his life. He thinks that in order for someone to perform peer review, they have to have already independently made the same discovery as the other scientist. So nobody can publish a discovery unless someone else already made that precise discovery, in which case they would have published it already. How is he this clueless about how science works? Somebody allegedly discovers or develops something, other people who are in that same field look at it and review the work. It's not that hard to understand.
Like we just filed a new patent for a neutrino gun that will speed up. I did this with Jeff Yee, a mathematician that I work with, but it will speed up the radioactive decay almost 5 to 10 times.
A neutrino gun, everybody. Terry thinks that making up a dumb name for a fake invention that sounds like it would be in a Flash Gordon comic strip makes his dumb made-up thing suddenly real. First of all, what the hell would a neutrino gun do? Does he not realize that 100 trillion neutrinos are passing through your body every second? What's a few more gonna do? Second, speeds up the radioactive decay of what? A particular nuclide? All nuclides? It makes everything in the universe radioactive? How? Especially since neutrinos are striking all atoms everywhere all the time already. It's a level of total disregard for real science that is so extreme that it continues to piss me off no matter how many hours of it I listen to.
I think that it did not serve their narrative and their agenda that this self-educated black man was able to do this.
Yeah, scientists are so uncomfortable with black people doing science. Except, of course, for all the thousands of black scientists who actually do real science instead of spewing gibberish on podcasts. Way to pander to that base, Terry.
But it should make sense seeing that, every other race has six DNA, six DNA sequences. Mm-hmm. Except the descendants of Africa.
Did you want to think about that a little longer, Terry? Because that ain't it. 6 DNA sequences? The human genome has about 3 billion base pairs distributed across 23 chromosomes. So what are the 6 sequences exactly? Unbelievable.
African descendants, and I hate using the term Africa because it should be called Alkebulan, because Africa means sunny horror. Based on the Latin word.
Alkebulan.
Yeah.
Very factual.
Sunny whore? You know that anyone can Google this for 5 seconds and see that you're lying, right? Oh, right. Nobody who watches either of these tools has ever lifted a finger to verify anything in their entire lives. Billy just responds with the word facts again, and we move on.
Anyone that's from Africa, we have 9 DNA series. Mm-hmm. Compared to 6, which provides a greater potential for genius.
9 DNA series? So it's not sequences now, but series? Congratulations. That makes even less sense. The irony is that racist jerks have proposed that black people are genetically inferior in the past, and we all agree that those people are anti-science assholes, right? But Terry doing the exact same thing back to white people? That's cool, yeah? I mean, how could black people build Wakanda if they aren't genetically superior to white people? It makes total sense. And to any jerk who thinks that joke was racist, let me remind you of the time 10 seconds ago when Terry emphatically and unabashedly said that black people are genetically superior to white people. Don't be a hypocrite.
You know, but they never examined any of the stuff that I talked about. Like I asked them, I said, you show me one time where an action times an action doesn't have a reaction, and I will show you, and I will say 1 times 1 equals 1. But as long as an action times an action has a reaction, there has to be more than one in multiplying those numbers. And even though I said that I meant it as a metaphor, you know. Well, there's a metaphor called "it's raining cats and dogs." You know, it doesn't mean that maybe cats and dogs aren't falling, but it's still raining like hell.
Terry just demonstrated about 3 different ways that he doesn't know what a metaphor is, while quadrupling down on the crappy math that made him famous. Once again, we multiply numbers, not actions. 2 actions don't always have a reaction, and 1 times 1 is 1. No matter how many cats and dogs are falling from the sky, you will be the laughing stock of humanity every single day of your life until you admit that you're wrong about this, bud.
There's still something wrong with our math for it to have that contradiction where the square root of 2 cubed has the same value as the square root of 2 times 2. That should not take place. And that's just one of the inconsistencies I found with the calculator.
Hey, remember when I already explained how dumb this is and how you have no basis for thinking that there can't be any number where doubling it and cubing it gives you the same result? And how we proved that root 2 does exactly that, both algebraically and graphically? Can we do a GoFundMe to bribe Terry into watching my videos while wearing the Clockwork Orange headset thingy so he can learn something for once in his miserable life? I'm really tired of saying the same things over and over again.
If you just go into the actual list of actual inventions that exist throughout the known world, you'll find out that predominantly the majority of them were created by black people, especially during the time of slavery, because we had to become innovators because of the amount of labor and work that we were doing. And so our minds were like, listen, man, we can't keep bending over and picking this stuff with our hands. We need a tractor. We need a motorized plow.
The tractor was invented by John Froelich, a white person in 1892 after slavery was over. Guys, you really, really need to drop this Afrocentric bullshit. Yes, there are many brilliant black people alive today, as there have been throughout history. Black people have invented many things and accomplished many incredible feats. You two are not among them. And by fabricating stories about superior DNA and black people inventing tractors, you are doing a disservice to black history. You're taking the achievements of black geniuses and equating them with a bunch of bullshit you made up, like neutrino guns. That's why intelligent black people shit all over you for your revisionist bullshit and script of lies. Someday your idiot fans will see through you as well.
Everyone else, all the other races, they left Africa a little too soon. So they're like born prematurely. A child born 2 months prematurely will never have the potential that a child that goes to their full term will have. And as descendants of Africa, African descendants, we stayed in the womb.
It's not a sentence out of Terry's mouth if it isn't wrong in 6 different ways at once. Africa is not a womb. Premature babies don't have lesser potential than babies that are carried to term by any metric imaginable, and subpopulations of humans who left Africa evolved different phenotypes in other places due to differing environments. They weren't somehow already a different race before leaving.
They came on that show specifically to tell me to stop teaching. Stop teaching. He said that countless times, stop teaching.
Yes.
Yet I get on the phone call with him and Ed Franco, who's the head of math for UC Berkeley, and we spent 2 weeks going through all of these things, to where Ed was like, don't worry about Tyson Don't worry about Neil deGrasse Tyson. He won't be remembered. You're going to be remembered for these things.
Funny how every time Terry name drops some academic that supports him, it's always just an anecdote and we never really hear from them, while every academic that speaks about him publicly just craps all over him, huh? Terry, Eric told you not to teach because you have no clue what the fuck you're talking about. Generally, it's important for a teacher to understand something themselves before teaching it. You missed that step. Go back to kindergarten and start again.
But I'm waiting for that MIT and Harvard world, everyone they're associated with, to make their innovations or come out with their new understanding and try and say that it's not based upon, the information that I shared with them.
And we're all waiting for you to start picking random things that people at Harvard and MIT are doing and pretend that it's based on the dumb shit you say.
If hydrogen makes up 99% of the universe, and we now have the geometry of hydrogen, that means we can manipulate 99% of what takes place in the universe. That makes us gods.
The geometry of hydrogen, it's one proton and one electron. None of your dumb shapes have anything to do with hydrogen whatsoever. Also, how do your dumb shapes allow you to manipulate hydrogen? In what way? Why aren't you doing it right now? Why haven't you mastered fusion technology? You're not a god, you're a joke.
And Eric Weinstein went on to say, well, I'm Pierce Morgan. Yeah, I think, 99% of what he said was BS, but there's this 1%, and he says, but I'm not sure it's his. I'm not sure it's his. Well, I think the patents say that it's mine.
He was being charitable, Terry. 100% of what you say is bullshit. And the 1% he was talking about, your dumb drone, indeed is not yours. You paid somebody else to make it for you. And again, you don't have any engineering patents of any kind.
You can fit 64 tetrahedrons within these axes that exist within the flower of life. And then they connect on a vertice.
Tetrahedrons, axes, vertices. Billy doesn't even know how to speak. I'm sorry, whine about elitism all you want, but people who know what they're talking about know how to say words correctly.
At the center of that vector equilibrium, theoretically, is unparalleled, unlimited power. We're talking about 0-point energy, which exists at every Planck unit in space-time throughout the known universe. And we just need to tap into that. I think some people have tried to create technologies that could tap into it. Have you looked into anything with that?
Well, what they're lacking is the angles of incidence. They're still trying to approach these things from a Cartesian base. And for the audience, I say Cartesian, it means orthogonal or Euclidean space. They use these 90-degree angles. That's the basis of their entire understanding.
Yeah, we totally could tap into the super secret energies inherent in spacetime. We're just using the wrong angle. When you projectile vomit your word salads through spacetime, you have to do it from up top right here. You're doing it all Cartesian-like. Stop being so Cartesian. This angle is much more better. That way you can have unlimited power. This would be cute if they were 8-year-olds playing wizards on the playground, but they're not. They're grown-ass men with thousands of people hanging on their every word.
But what we've been able to accomplish with our propulsion system, we're getting more energy out of it than we're putting into it. Mm-hmm. That's that so-called 0-point energy, but it's by using the proper geometry.
Who is doing what? Who is we? What propulsion system? The one in your dreams? Terry is not working on any propulsion system, and he has absolutely no clue what 0-point energy means, even though Billy just told him. This is just like Billy and his fake space agency, which has the dumbest, fakest name imaginable, and is literally just a website. But don't worry, a laboratory is coming soon. Building rockets is super cheap, so I'm sure it won't be long now.
People have to, one of the biggest problems we have in the youth, because I deal with a lot of youth all the time, and the biggest problem is they can't see their potential success in a lot of other people. And so to their mind, it has them limited. Where I grew up in my neighborhood was so poor and so destitute that the people there, the kids that I grew up with, they thought that was the actual norm. They didn't see anything outside of what they could be potentially based on what their environment gave them.
Yeah, so many black youths don't recognize their own potential, but not Billy. He looked around his poverty stricken community, and what did he think to himself? I'll become a scientist and cure a disease that plagues my community. Nah, too much work. Oh, I'll become a lawyer and help my community with their legal struggles. Nah, too hard. Wait a minute, I'll recycle some crappy books full of lies and sell magic potions to gullible morons on the internet. That's my ticket out of here. Way to lift your people up, Bill. And by lift up, I mean take advantage of.
And you have to trust that, because that instinct, where they try and tell you not to listen to it, that instinct is what got you to the egg. It got you to beat out 500 million of your brothers and sisters. You trusted that instinct that got you to the egg.
Yeah, you totally trusted your instinct when you were a fully sentient sperm cell, ignoring all the haters and swimming your way to the egg with passion and drive. That wasn't just a blind cellular process. Why should you listen to the haters now?
But if these show a better prediction ability, like we've been able to predict earthquakes for the last 3 years within 24 hours and within a 500-mile area, with our simple equipment.
No, Terry has definitely never done this ever, or it would be front page news, which is why he doesn't even bother trying to explain how his dumb shapes would allow him to do this. Throw this lie on the gigantic pile of lies.
One thing I'll say with the wave conjugations, can you break that down a little bit deeper? How do you initiate the wave conjugation, or is something that's already propagating through space-time?
These I call them these are the dark matter. The wave conjugations actually be the ether. What we've defined is the ether.
So instead of answering the question, Terry just says that the wave conjugations are dark matter and also the ether, two totally different things, only one of which exists and neither of which explain anything whatsoever. Great work.
Did their very best to make go away, because the Michelson-Morley experiment that they did in 1887, the same people reconducted that experiment 20 years later, and they were able to detect the ether, but that information wasn't published, or widespread, didn't become widespread. Why? Because they had taken the walk down quantum electrodynamics.
No, the ether does not exist. All subsequent versions of this experiment continue to prove the ether doesn't exist. There are no data published or unpublished to suggest otherwise, and Michelson and Morley never did anything with quantum electrodynamics that was developed by Feynman. Clueless to the nth degree.
And the all shapes, the mirrored all shapes, the ones that expand out, they represent the dark energy.
Okay.
That everything else is moving its way through. So they're okay with understanding only 4% of the universe and 96% of it being dark and mysterious. Whereas we don't have that problem. The breakaway civilization that we're starting.
That's not what dark energy means. It refers to the repulsive force that is accelerating the expansion of space-time. Nothing is moving through dark energy, and the term dark, as it applies to dark matter, simply means it does not interact with electromagnetic radiation. That doesn't make it mysterious. You just never even looked up the definition of dark matter and never learned about the Bohr model in 10th grade like the rest of us.
About light, how a photon doesn't go from point A to point B, that it propagates from pixel to pixel. And are you seeing something similar with this, with the way the universe works from your perspective?
Well, light doesn't travel. That's what I'm noticing, that it doesn't travel. Right. It's the energy is being reproduced.
Yes.
It's reproducing itself. There's a sexual mating.
Billy says, "Hey, Terry, did you notice this idiotic, meaningless thing I made up? That light propagates from pixel to pixel?" Terry says, "Yes. I noticed that light doesn't move at all, a thing that is objectively false and also the exact opposite of what you just said." Billy says yes in an excited tone, with eyes lit up like a kid in a candy store.
Of an energy, of a greater energy. We're seeing the shadow of it in this thing. We're the condensation of what's taking place in the dark matter and dark energy. Our entire existence, our entire universe is just a condensation. It's just a balancing between two different pressure conditions.
The entire universe and everything in it is just condensation, meaning gas that became a liquid, and also a balancing between two different pressure conditions, a totally different, contradictory, and meaningless thing. Amazing. I like to imagine Neil Tyson rolling his eyes at this crap.
So many creatures in the universe feed off of light. Then you have to understand, since living things cannot eat dead things. A person can't eat a concrete brick and get the nutrients from it. He can only eat living things.
No, nothing feeds on light because light is not matter, so that was a very dumb thing to say. But not as dumb as saying you can't eat dead things. Maybe Terry likes to shove live insects into his mouth every day, but I'm going to continue eating fully already dead and cooked plants and animals. Thanks very much.
So since so many creatures feed from light itself directly, wouldn't light have to be alive?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I talk about all the time, that everything is actually alive in this energetic universe, right? Everything is alive.
No, not everything is alive. If absolutely everything was alive, then the concept of life would be meaningless and the word wouldn't have any reason to exist. Learn some basic biochemistry, morons.
There's some scientists in a laboratory a few years back were able to reproduce an 8th dimensional quasi-crystal.
No, nobody ever made any 8-dimensional anything. We live and operate in 3 spatial dimensions.
But they're not seeing us in real time, and you can't see anything in real time because the time it takes for the photon to ping off of the object and then hit the retina, go to the back of the brain and get deciphered, the thing has already moved.
Hey, remember just a couple minutes ago when Terry said that light doesn't move and Billy agreed with him? And now Billy is talking about light moving and Terry just grins and nods his head like a putz? Yeah, just making sure you caught that too.
If they were able to apply those things in there, they would have an opportunity to be present in the moment. But what it will ultimately do is it actually pulls you out. And that's what I was talking about, being able to decouple and get to that space where you're not affected by any of the forces. That's when you're able to fully utilize the universe as a whole and the technology.
Wow, if you can do this decoupling thing that Terry is referring to but not explaining whatsoever, you're not affected by any of the forces. No more gravity. Fly away, little birdie. Oh wait, you can't because you're not affected by the strong nuclear force, so all the atoms in your body instantly disintegrated. I remember when this happened to all the people who did this not at all imaginary thing Terry is talking about. It was crazy.
If it wasn't for the papal inquisitions, which created a lot of slaughter and murder, that they believe that the Arabs would have been on the moon in the 1800s. This dogma has really held us back from becoming who we truly are meant to be. It's held us back and robbed our birthright, and we're scratching and clawing our way back out of this hole, trying to get back to who we truly are as people. I believe that we're going to get there because of people like yourself and many others that have courage. It's just a process that, in some ways, man, it's just like, it's such a slow, arduous process, but I believe it is happening on a very small scale, little by little.
Yes, disenfranchised minorities have indeed had to overcome a lot of adversity over the decades in order to become successful in fields like science and politics. And you assholes are specifically hindering this progress by filling their minds with lies and science denial. Stop pretending otherwise.
But he really encouraged me to get this stuff out there, and for all the hits that it takes, great. But there's truth. There's all truth, and if there's any lie, don't throw it away.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't have given me the patents if they were BS.
Right. That's a fact.
It's BS top to bottom. The educated populace has unanimously thrown it away, and you have no patents. Thanks, Terry. That's a fact, Jack. Billy always knows just how to wrap up a rant. Anyway, Terry then skedaddles off to his vacation villa, or wherever the hell he was talking from. Billy then talks by himself for another 20 minutes, but genuinely, who cares? Listening to another second of his fabricated charity or his stereotypical bootstraps self-help spiel isn't worth my time or yours. To the people who fall for this stuff, even though not a single one of you are actually watching, grow the fuck up. Stop believing every idiotic thing out of the mouths of these frauds with zero evidence. Reality is not whatever you wish it would be in order to make you feel special. If you want to understand how the universe works, get an education. To the unfortunate folks in the inner circles of these jerks, you have my pity. Having to listen to this crap 24/7 would be a torture I can barely fathom, and you know Terry never shuts the hell up. He certainly never does on set, which is why everyone finds him completely intolerable. Oh yeah, and he beats up women, don't forget that, like all of his wives, with closed fists. Oh, and choking. And to Billy, you are also a garbage person. You pretend to elevate black people, but really, you prey on them. You encourage them to turn their backs on real knowledge and embrace the snake oil you sell them, which will only influence them away from choices and career paths that could actually elevate them out of poverty. You are the oppressive force you pretend to rebel against, and your fake empire will crumble around you in the relatively near future. Have a third fake name picked out for when that happens. In the end, contrary to what was advertised, this pathetic powwow didn't break the internet after all. Mine's working just fine anyway. I guess a couple 100,000 views in 2 weeks wasn't that big a deal after all. And that my first video on Terrence got a couple million in the same amount of time gives me a sliver of hope for the future, even if a quarter of those views were just a bunch of whiny haters dropping by to slather on the hate. So that's it for this installment with Terrance Howard and Billy Carson, the Barnum and Bailey of the internet. These two have earned a special place in my heart, so I'll continue to check in and mock them whenever necessary. But for now, we have some other targets to get to, like Eric Weinstein, so I'll see you next time.